MacArthur was crossing the prisoner yard when he stopped before Barrack 9, a long wooden building with every bunk stripped clean, every window nailed shut from the outside, and fresh footprints leading away through mud that no guard had reported. And when the camp commander said the barrack had been empty for weeks, MacArthur looked at the steaming food bucket beside the door and asked why an empty building still needed breakfast. MacArthur arrived at the German POW camp with a small Allied inspection party after the camp had been placed under temporary American control, and the officer in charge hurried to explain that most prisoners had already been counted, separated by rank, and prepared for movement to a larger holding area. The German camp commander, Colonel Rademacher, presented a neat barrack map with marked paths and approved stops, but MacArthur walked past the first line of prisoners and turned toward the north fence, where one long barrack stood apart from the others with no men outside and no smoke from its stove. Rademacher said Barrack 9 had been abandoned after sickness months earlier, and he tried to guide the party toward the kitchen storehouse. But MacArthur stopped near the door because the mud beside the step carried fresh boot marks in two different sizes. A young American lieutenant named Parks checked the window boards and found the nails newly hammered, while another guard noticed a food bucket beside the wall with warm broth still clinging to the bottom, which made the commander's explanation collapse before the door even opened. MacArthur asked why an empty barrack needed breakfast, and Rademacher answered that the bucket had been left by mistake, but Parks lifted the lid and found 6 wooden spoons inside, each wiped clean except for one marked with a prisoner number burned into the handle. The main ledger showed no prisoner assigned to Barrack 9, and the morning count listed the building as sealed, yet the kitchen book showed extra rations issued for 6 men under a code that matched no official barrack number. MacArthur ordered the door opened, but the German guard at the corner said the key had been lost during surrender, so Parks cut the lock with bolt cutters while 2 American MPs moved Rademacher and the camp clerk away from the entrance. Inside, the barrack was not dusty or unused, because 6 bunks showed flattened straw, 1 stove held warm ash, and a wall shelf contained a small stack of folded prisoner notices written in several languages. Parks searched beneath the first bunk and found a torn cloth bag containing soap, a pencil stub, and a strip of paper with the words, "Not transport," written in English beside 3 numbers that looked like a convoy code. MacArthur ordered every exit sealed and all transfer trucks stopped outside the gate, because any prisoner kept in an unlisted barrack could be moved through the camp system without appearing on the afternoon roll. Rademacher claimed the 6 men were harmless labor prisoners removed for quarantine, but the camp doctor denied issuing any quarantine order, and his medical board carried no entries for Barrack 9, no fever cases, and no cleared transfers. MacArthur told Parks to bring every kitchen worker, clerk, guard, and prisoner assigned near the north fence to the yard, because the empty barrack had already proved one thing: that somebody had fed men who were not supposed to exist. Subscribe for more forgotten German POW stories like this one. The escalation began when Parks compared the burned spoon number with the camp intake files, and he found that the number belonged to a Polish-born German army interpreter named Lucas Brenner, officially transferred 3 days earlier to a hospital train that had never arrived. MacArthur ordered the hospital train file opened on the records table, and the clerk produced a stamped transfer sheet, but the paper had no receiving signature, no doctor's mark, and no transport guard listed below the destination line. A kitchen worker named Ernst admitted that he had carried broth to Barrack 9 before dawn for 6 nights, but he said the order came from Captain Seidel, Rademacher's deputy, who told him the men inside were dangerous witnesses waiting for Allied intelligence. Seidel was brought from the motor yard, and when Parks asked him about the witnesses, he said he had only followed Rademacher's orders, yet his gloves carried fresh tar from the window boards, and his boots matched one of the prints outside the barrack. MacArthur ordered Seidel searched, and an MP found a folded ration sheet sewn inside his sleeve, listing 6 meals, 6 blankets, and 1 phrase written beside the final line: "move before inspection." The phrase forced the investigation into the vehicle yard, where American soldiers checked the trucks and discovered one covered lorry with its floor recently scrubbed, its rear canvas wet, and 6 sets of straw fibers caught between the boards. Parks found a hidden compartment beneath the lorry bench with air holes drilled through the wood, and inside lay a prisoner cap, a broken pair of spectacles, and a torn page from a bilingual military phrasebook. MacArthur placed the phrasebook beside Brenner's file, and the camp interpreter confirmed that Brenner could speak English, Polish, and German, making him useful to anyone who needed false statements, copied voices, or changed identities during surrender. A prisoner from Barrack 4 came forward under guard and said Brenner had been taken from the common line after refusing to translate a document about captured supply routes, and 2 other men from the same group vanished with him that night. The records clerk insisted the vanished men had been transferred legally, but Parks opened the ration ledger and found 6 extra meals continuing after the supposed transfer, proving that the missing group had remained inside the camp while their papers moved elsewhere. MacArthur ordered Seidel confined, Rademacher separated, and the north fence searched from corner to corner, because the empty barrack was no longer a hidden room, but a staging point for moving prisoners outside the official count. Near the fence, an American guard found a narrow gate behind stacked coal boards, and beyond it a trail led toward an abandoned brickworks, where fresh wagon tracks showed that Barrack 9 had emptied only hours before MacArthur asked why it was empty. The major consequence came when the search party reached the abandoned brickworks and found 6 sleeping places inside a kiln shed, with blanket marks on the floor and ashes from a small hidden fire still warm enough to stain a glove. Parks searched the kiln office and discovered torn transport documents weighted beneath a brick, including 3 Allied supply route sketches, 2 forged prisoner release forms, and a note instructing someone to keep the interpreter alive until the crossing. MacArthur ordered a warning sent to the nearest supply command, because the route sketches showed a bridge convoy scheduled to cross a narrow river road that afternoon, and the missing interpreter might have been used to read or rewrite captured orders. The warning caused immediate consequences inside the camp, where all prisoner transfers were canceled. Every German clerk was removed from record handling, and American guards took control of the gates, towers, kitchen, and vehicle yard. Rademacher tried to blame Seidel for acting alone, but Parks found the commander's private seal pressed into one forged release form, which meant the fake documents had passed through the highest office in the camp. A patrol followed wagon tracks from the brickworks to a farm lane and found a discarded medical sling hanging from a fence, and the camp doctor identified it as his own work because he had treated one hidden prisoner for a dislocated shoulder without entering the case in the medical book. The doctor admitted he had been ordered to treat the man after midnight and to write the injury under another prisoner's number, and when Parks checked the false entry, it matched a man who was already buried outside the west fence. MacArthur ordered the graves checked by record only, not opened, and the burial book revealed 3 dead men still active on transfer lists, giving Seidel enough false names to move living witnesses as if they were different prisoners. The consequence widened when a captured wagon driver confessed that the 6 prisoners had been divided at the farm lane, with 3 sent toward the river road and 3 returned toward the camp under covered sacks because the plan had changed after Allied vehicles were seen nearby. Parks used the confession to search the supply sheds again, and behind stacked flour crates, he found 3 hidden bunks cut low into the wall, proving that some of the missing men had been brought back after the barrack was emptied. One of the hidden bunks held Brenner's phrasebook cover, and inside the cover he had written a warning in English that the convoy road was being marked with false signs to lead American trucks toward a damaged bridge. MacArthur ordered engineers to verify every road sign between the camp and the river, because Barrack 9 had turned from an empty building into proof of a larger attempt to use hidden prisoners, false papers, and stolen language against Allied movement. The major reversal came when the engineer patrol reached the river road and reported that the signs had already been changed back before any American convoy arrived, leaving no trap in place and no damaged bridge ahead. Parks first thought the warning had been wrong, but MacArthur ordered the old signs searched, and behind one wooden marker the soldiers found a second message from Brenner saying the false route was only bait to pull guards away from the camp. The reversal changed the investigation because the missing prisoners were not being taken toward the bridge as expected, and the real movement was happening behind the wire while most patrols searched the roads. MacArthur returned to the camp and ordered a silent sweep of sealed buildings, starting with the chapel store, the laundry loft, and the coal cellar near the hidden north gate, while prisoners remained in barracks so the conspirators could not scatter inside a crowd. In the laundry loft, MPs found 3 of the missing men alive, bound with cloth strips and hidden beneath folded uniforms, and one of them said Brenner and 2 others had been taken into the old water tower by Seidel's men after the road patrol departed. The water tower had been marked unsafe in the camp map, but Parks found fresh rope fibers on the ladder and a pulley newly greased, which meant it had been used as a holding point, not an abandoned structure. Inside the tower base, the soldiers found no prisoners, but they discovered a rope lowering into an underground drainage channel that ran beneath the fence and toward the commandant's house outside the camp. Rademacher suddenly changed his story and said Seidel had planned to kill him after taking the forged permits, because the deputy wanted to escape with selected officers and leave the commander blamed for the hidden Barrack. MacArthur refused to accept the claim without proof, but the rescued men confirmed that Seidel had argued with Rademacher about whether Brenner should be kept alive, and one prisoner had heard Seidel say the interpreter knew the wrong name. That phrase led Parks back to the forged release forms, where he noticed that one officer's name appeared twice with different ranks, proving that Seidel was not smuggling one man out, but replacing a wanted officer with a harmless prisoner's identity. The reversal became complete when Brenner's final message was found scratched onto the water tower wall, warning that the officer using the false identity had already entered the camp processing line and would leave with the next group unless every face was checked again. MacArthur ordered a full identity parade at once, because the empty Barrack had not only hidden missing witnesses, it had prepared the perfect empty space for one dangerous man to walk out under another life. The final irreversible event began when MacArthur ordered every prisoner in the transfer group lined up without hats, coats opened, hands visible, and records held by American clerks instead of German staff. Parks moved down the line with Brenner's phrasebook, asking simple questions in English and Polish, and most prisoners failed to understand. But one man with a farm laborer's card answered too quickly before correcting himself. The man's card identified him as a low-ranking prisoner named Dieter Lang, yet his hands carried officer calluses from gloves, his boots had private spurs marks, and the medical note attached to his file described an old scar on the wrong side of his face. MacArthur ordered the man removed from the line, and under his collar Parks found a second identity strip bearing the name General Major Klaus Wehren, an officer wanted for organizing false surrender routes through prison camps. Wehren tried to insist he was Lang, but the 3 rescued prisoners identified his voice from the water tower, and one pointed to the ring mark on his finger where an officer's signet had been removed only that morning. A shout rose from the vehicle yard as Seidel attempted to drive through the service gate with 2 armed orderlies, but American MPs blocked the truck with a jeep, pulled him out, and found Brenner hidden in the rear beneath canvas and sacks. Brenner was alive but weak, and when he was carried to the records table, he identified Wehren as the officer whose name had been removed from every surrender list and replaced by prisoner Lang's stolen card. The irreversible break came when MacArthur ordered Wehren, Seidel, Rademacher, and every clerk involved in the false transfers placed under separate armed custody, while the rescued prisoners signed witness statements before the identities could be confused again. Engineers sealed the drainage channel, guards removed the hidden north gate, and Parks nailed the forged papers to an evidence board beside the spoon from Barrack Nine, the phrasebook, the false release forms, and the 2 identity strips. MacArthur then ordered every camp record rebuilt from the body outward, with face, voice, scars, language, witnesses, and arrival group checked before any number or card could be trusted again. By afternoon, the real Dieter Lang was found in the coal cellar, frightened but alive, wearing no coat because his identity had been taken for wearing, and his return made the forged transfer impossible to defend as a clerical mistake. The final act could not be undone because the empty Barrack had exposed a stolen identity, saved 6 hidden witnesses, stopped Waren's escape, and forced the camp to prove every living man before another gate could open. 2 days later, MacArthur stood before Barrack 9 while the boards were removed from its windows and Brenner placed the marked spoon on the evidence table beside Lang's restored card. Waren passed the Barrack under guard without the stolen coat, the stolen name, or the quiet line that would have carried him away, and when Parks wrote 6 recovered names into the new register, the building that had looked empty became the place where the camp's hidden escape broke open. Most people know how World War II ended. Very few know what happened inside these prison camps. Subscribe for more untold WWII stories.